Just think about this for a second. When somebody tells you that there's something wrong with you, something that you need to change about yourself, how do you react to that?
In my head.
Hey everyone, I'm in a rush today because the sun is going down and a breeze brought all these clouds in today, so I apologize if there's any kind of breeze going on, but I want to talk today about personality disorders. What does it mean when they're ego-syntonic personality disorders? Now, when it comes to describing a personality disorder or any mental disorder in general, we have these two terms that we can use. We can call it ego-syntonic or ego-dystonic. They are opposites, and when something is ego-syntonic, it has implications for how we treat a personality disorder, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So what ego-syntonic means is that there's something about you that you like about yourself. So when it comes to an ego-syntonic personality disorder, the aspects of that personality disorder are things that you actually think are good about yourself and you like them, so you're less likely to change them. This also means that obviously the opposite, ego-dystonic, means that there's something about this disorder or personality disorder that you don't like yourself because of this. So what we see is typically with something like narcissistic personality disorder, obsessive compulsive personality disorder, those aspects of the person, they like those things about themselves. A narcissist, somebody who has narcissistic personality disorder, they like that they feel above others. They like that they antagonize people. And somebody who has obsessive compulsive personality disorder, they like that they have these rules that other people have to follow. They like that these things are parts of themselves. Doesn't mean that they always like it, because of course if they're in recovery, if they're working on it, they may have realized like, oh, these aren't so good. But most people who have these disorders, that's not their first thought. Their first thought is, all of these aspects of my personality, I like them. I do want to caution here that we're still learning a lot about personality disorders, and there are different models for observing personality disorders, and I personally like the model that's in the back of the DSM-5 in section 3, which is a trait-based model. And under that model, you can see people as whole people who have different traits, and sometimes you might have some traits that you see as ego-syntonic or good, and you may have some traits that you see as ego-dystonic or bad. So I don't want it to be like, just because you have this particular personality disorder, that you think everything is good about yourself. That may not be true. Now here's the thing, if somebody sees a part of themselves that is a disordered part, that doesn't benefit them, that actually hinders their life, if they see a part of themselves as being a good thing, then how are you supposed to change it? Why would you ever change something that you think is good? Why would you change what is good about you? Why would you change? So you have to convince somebody to change who has some kind of ego-syntonic thing about themselves that they like. How do you do that? Well, you're not going to do it by telling them how they're hurting everybody else around them, because it may be true. A lot of these personality disorders, it's harming the people around that person, and you want them to change because you want them to not be hurting you anymore or hurting the people around them. But that's not going to convince somebody who thinks that that's a good characteristic, that that's something that they need to change. So the first thing to know here is that you cannot change anybody. That person has to want to change themselves, and what you're trying to do here is to convince them of why they should want to change themselves. Of course, a therapist is going to be best equipped to do this. So if you can get them in to see a therapist, that could be somebody that they can trust, who's impartial, who doesn't have the pre-existing emotional stuff that's going on between you and this person. Get them in to see a therapist if that's possible. But you may have a hard time getting somebody to go in to see a therapist, even if that somebody is yourself, if you think that this is a good thing about yourself, or if that person thinks that this is an ego-syntonic thing about themselves. So what you have to do is convince them that it's not good for them to be this way. Just think about this for a second. When somebody tells you that there's something wrong with you, something that you need to change about yourself, how do you react to that? Are you happy when somebody says that? Do you feel good when somebody says that? You probably react strongly, and you probably get angry and defensive. So what you're going to have to do if you have somebody that has a personality disorder or personality disorder traits, and they are ego-syntonic about these traits, what you're going to have to do is convince them that they're not good without getting them angry and upset, and without getting them to be defensive. So how do we do that? Well, what you want to do is try to bring this up at a time when they're not already emotional. So if they're in the middle of a rage, if they're in the middle of being horribly upset and they're just not able to talk to you, that's not a great time to bring this up. So if you can, bring these matters up when things are calm, when they're not already freaking out about something. What I personally think works best for this is something called empathic confrontation. So what you do is you bring up the behavior that you think isn't so good. You know, like whenever we get into an argument, it seems like you just shut me out and you always put yourself above me, as if what you say is always the right thing to say. And actually, don't even start with you, because I said way too many yous there. Say, you know, when we get into an argument, I feel really hurt when something's going on, and you put yourself above me, and it makes me feel put below you. Try to own as much of it as you can and say how you feel. And let that be the beginning, but they're gonna get angry. They're gonna be a little bit freaked out by that, and their anxiety is gonna rise. So when they get angry, when their anxiety rises, when they get defensive, acknowledge the way that they're feeling. Say like, yeah, I understand why you're angry when I say something like that. I can see how that might make you upset, and really try to understand and be empathic. This is the empathic part of empathic confrontation. You started with the confrontation, now you're giving them some empathy to show that you do understand why maybe they behave the way that they do. Even if you disagree with it, at least you're understanding why they do the things that they do. Once you've acknowledged how they're feeling and they understand that you're connecting with them and that you do care, that's when you let them know, when you do this, when you behave this way, it makes me not want to connect with you. It makes me not want to reach an agreement with you. It makes me want to distance myself from you. And what you're doing here is letting them know that something that they want, presumably they want to be in a relationship with you, they want to have a friendship or whatever it is that you have between the two of you. When they do the thing that they're doing, they're actually harming themselves, because it's causing you to not want to cooperate. It's causing you to not give them the things that they want. That's what you're trying to communicate with them. I know that this is hard, and I know in the moment it gets very emotional. You both get defensive. It's something that takes a lot of practice to be able to do. I'm not going to say I'm perfect at doing it myself. This is why it's best to get somebody in to see a therapist who might be able to do this kind of an exercise with them that has much more practice with it. But if you can role play this maybe with a friend before you approach this person, see if it works. It may not work. They may just have such a strong connection to their ego-syntonic personality traits that they're still going to get defensive, they're going to rage, they're going to get angry, or they're going to withdraw and get away from you. They may not get it. It's not going to click right away. Personality disorder problems take a long time to treat, and it's because a personality trait is a habit that's been formed over time, and there's emotional stuff going on, there's thoughts that go on. So it takes a long time to dislodge some of that and to dislodge the memories that are holding those traits in place. So it takes time. So don't expect to do this once and things just magically change. But if you're willing to help this person, if you care about them, you care about them being in your life, try to do this with them. If they have difficulty with it, if you have difficulty with it, maybe suggest that they go and see a therapist. The obvious problem with somebody who has an egosyntonic personality trait or personality disorder is that when you suggest to them to go see a therapist, they're going to say, well, why would I go see a therapist? There's nothing wrong with me. So you may want to frame it, if you're in an intimate relationship, as, hey, you know, I think we have a hard time in our relationship. I'm having trouble around this issue. I think it would be good if we can go see a couples therapist together. And that kind of gets them in to the room, at least with you, so that you can have these discussions. That doesn't mean that a couples therapist is going to understand what's going on. It doesn't mean a couples therapist is going to be able to solve the problem, but at least then you have an outside person as a resource that you can talk with. And I would say that if you go to see a couples therapist, because I have seen couples therapists myself, it helps a lot to have one that allows you to have individual sessions with them, not together, so that you can talk this out with them and you can get them to see your side of things. Because sometimes when the both of you are in the room, the dynamic changes and that person doesn't seem the way that they normally do at home, and it may just help to be able to explain to them, like, this is how I'm feeling, this is what they do, and give that therapist a chance to see it, because it may not come up in the room when the two of you are there together. Something else that's worth saying here is that if you are the person with the ego-syntonic personality disorder, I know that you like this thing about yourself, and I know that you probably like it because it's helped you get by in life. Something about this personality trait, something about behaving this way has benefited you. It's not that you're just making it up that you like it. There's a reason you like it. It actually has helped you get by. It's gotten you ahead in life. It's gotten you to where you are today. But it's also hurting you, and that's why it's worth it to work on it and to change it. Even though it takes a lot of effort, it will make it so that you can become more intimate with people, so that you can have a more fulfilling life. Because what you may not be realizing is that this aspect of yourself is actually shutting down a lot of the beautiful things in life that you can experience. If you'd like to learn more about personality disorders and your own mental health, head on over to youtube.com/RyanLiberty and hit subscribe. Thank you to my patrons who make videos like this possible. If you want to support me on my mission of humanizing mental health, head on over to Patreon. I'll put the link below. Now I'd love to hear from you. Do you know somebody who's had an ego-syntonic personality disorder, What has it been like for you to live with them, to interact with them? Or maybe you've been somebody who's had an egosyntonic personality trait that you've worked to change. What has that been like for you? Let's discuss that down below so that we can all learn from each other. As always, thank you for joining me out here. The sun is going down. I'll see you next time, everyone.